System PL-109450. March, 2296. Mike Garner shook himself awake as the warning shrill of a proximity alarm jolted him awake. A long-range scout for the Federated Colonial Navy, he and his ship had been tasked with surveying systems that were technically inside the VTCHCAL border territories, but might serve as a weak point for a human counteroffensive. At the moment, there was a tense Cold War going on. Since the Third Battle of Orzana, the FCN didn't have enough offensive strength to press an attack. In fact, they were swapping transponders and repainting hulls at an impressive rate at the Jupiter dockyards to give the impression of greater numbers. Earth was a relatively new player on the scene, having only developed hyperdrives 80 years earlier and settling a handful of worlds in the first wave. After some growing pains and upheaval, the federated colonies of Terra had formed a new space nation and declared an era of peace and prosperity, just in time to run into the 8th VTCHCAL expansion fleet, which brought Mike to his present situation. He was in a heavy reconnaissance scout, armored and fast, with a crew of 1 and a ship's AI. LLE-419 chimed in with sensor updates. Commander, scans show 4 enemy craft of 2 types. 3 appear to be VTCHCAL raiders and are currently firing on a ship of unknown type. Mike frowned as he studied the screens, dialing up his stealth and changing his vectors. The VTCHCAL were pack hunters, predators from an arid world, and behaved somewhat like hyenas. A squadron of raiders had started this war when ripped apart a settler convoy bound for New Scranton. They rarely engaged unless they had numerical superiority and would pursue their prey tirelessly unless deterred by force, and that was fine with Mike. Lily, his name for the ship's AI, had been designed to get him out of situations like this, and he wasn't going to let some poor alien merchant get taken like so many humans had been. Lily, charge the mag coils and chamber rounds in the following order. M, armor, high-X. Slave 2 cannons to each raider, but don't engage tracking lock until we close to 10,000 meters. Maintain vector, and prepare for 90-degree intercept. He waited and watched the display as his ship stalked the would-be stalkers. The VTCHCAL were still surrounding the 4th ship and appeared to be toying with it. A few escape pods were jettisoning, but in small puffs of light and vaporized metal, they were being picked off by VTCHCAL lasers. Mike's blood boiled, seeing that, and every fiber of his being raged at the cruelty, but he needed to stay calm. If he lit up thrusters and charged in guns blazing, the raiders could easily hold the ship before turning to take him on. But approaching from underneath at low power and charging them with a hail of cannon fire, he was hopping to catch all 3 at once and save the ship. Closing to inflection point in 20 seconds. Lily intoned flatly. She didn't have much emotional programming. Command had found out that pairing a human with a feeling AI on long-term missions led to complications. Mike gripped the controls and flipped off the autopilot. Lily, I need full perpendicular acceleration, channel all power from stealth systems, and set screens to double front. Ready? Let's go ASSHOLES. Mike hauled back on the stick as hard as he could, and Lily shrieked upward as her interteal compensators strained against the engines. Mike started to see red creep in at the corners of his vision, but stayed on course. Ahead of him, he could see the raiders begin to change their movements, adjusting to the unexpected attack. Too late, Mike smiled. Their hulls were bared to him as he heard his targeting computer ping 3 locks and fired. Each ship encountered a sudden series of events almost faster than thought. 6 large bolts fired from Lily's forward cannons, each 1.5 meters of burnished steel and tungsten. Those 6 bolts each carried a high-energy electromagnetic pulse generator with a fully charged capacitor and was capable of emitting an EMP equivalent to a 600-kiloton nuclear bomb. There went the raiders' shields. As the shields winked out, another 12 bolts shot out, covering the 10 kilometers in less than a second. The first 6 were armor-piercing, breaching the underhulls and paving the way for the high-explosive rounds that were to follow. In less than 5 seconds, it was all over, and Mike and Lily streaked upward past the alien freighter. Mike cheered in exultation and swung Lily around. All right, scan the 4th ship. Let's see if there's any survivors. He moved in closer and switched on his scanning suite. The ship was eerie, an asymmetric streamlined design that somehow evoked both water and stone at the same time. The ship's power systems were shot, that much was clear, but it appeared that at least one forward section held pressure and heat. ID on this thing, Lily? Mike asked absently as he checked for an airlock that looked like it could take a seal. According to the transponder, this is small courier vessel belonging to the Hrovashi hegemon. Mike froze for a solid 5 seconds. The Hrovashi hegemon had been the largest power in the Orion Arm for over 12,000 years, at least according to the files and information Terra had managed to barter for. Highly reclusive, very insular, the Hrovashi were bogai men of spacer legends. They technically claimed dominion over all space and believed that all beings had a right to live and explore. In practice, that left a lot of room for interpretation and misbehavior among the galaxy's races. The only thing that seemed to get the Hrovashi's attention was attempting to commit genocide against another species or subjugating pre-hyper worlds. Navy Command had advised its scouts about the Hrovashi with one simple directive. Don't. His mind screamed at him to spin up his drives and get out of here, but he couldn't leave the ship. It was humanity's first chance to observe the inside of a Hrovashi ship, after all, which could provide an incredible insight into their species. And he couldn't, Mike thought, allow this alien ship to get taken by the VTCHCal. According to his scans, this freighter's main reactor was some sort of zero-point energy device and was emitting all kinds of Hawking radiation. He didn't exactly know what that meant in terms of power output, but he knew that Hawking radiation was normally only created by black holes. Just a quick dock to check for survivors and render aid, he said to himself as the ship latched against the hull. Please repeat your request, Commander. Lily spoke from the relay on his ear as he got into his spacesuit. Disregard. Mike checked the fasteners. Cycle the airlock and let's go in. Keep a lookout for any VTCHCal and keep the engines hot. The airlock hissed open, and Mike's flashlight played across the alien ship. It was actually his first time on a vessel not made by humans. And the gravity difference caught him slightly off guard. The Hrovashi must come from a low-gravity world because he was skidding across the floor. A thin sheen of ice covered everything, which probably was important, but Mike was too busy taking it all in. Lily, where's that power reading coming from? He checked the display on his wrist. 12 meters ahead, then left. A central chamber has been sealed. Mike nodded and moved forward, carrying a med repair kit and hopping he was doing the right thing. I'm so going to get fired for this. He came to corner and saw a sealed hatch with a blinking gold light above it. It was the size of the hatch that Mike noticed first, almost 3 meters. If these guys don't eat me first. He walked up to the hatch and found a frost-covered panel, with a touch inactivated and something that looked similar to a universal comm jack flickered to life. Which made sense. According to legend, the Hrovashi had mandated that certain things like communications and airlocks be standardized across races to facilitate trade. In fact, in some languages, the word for galactic standard was Hrovashi. Mike tried to communicate through the wall. Hello. This is Commander Garner of the Terran Navy. I'm here to render assistance. Was no response, and Mike mused that there probably wasn't any reason to expect one. For all whoever was on the other side of the hatch knew, he had been part of the attack. He tried the message 2 more times and was about to leave when his earpiece chimed. Commander, scans show alien drive signature in our proximity. Crap. VTCHCal. Negative. Ship of unknown type, but structural design indicates similar origin to the freighter we are currently docked with. Ship is approaching at high speed, mass exceeding 100 million tons. What? Mike's heart pounded as he stood up suddenly. A Terran heavy dreadnought massed about a 1/4 mil, and it was a 90-meter armored beast. Just then the door hissed and cracked open, spilling out light and steam. Stepping over the threshold, Mike saw what looked like a medical bay. Not sure what he was seeing, the bodies of several large-shelled beings, all claws and limbs, were sprawled in beds with flashing purple readouts. On one bed, far from the door, the displays were still golden and the being was moving slightly. Mike sealed the door and checked his readouts. The room's was actually about 30% oxygen, and he quickly found it was very humid as his helmet fogged up completely. Not the fucking time. Mike snapped as he ripped off his helmet. The air smelled like a moldy beach, and he set his kit and fumbled for medical supplies. Lily, see if you can interface with this medbay and figure out something about this thing's biology. I'd rather not kill it. Mike began triage, though his 3-day course hadn't hardly prepared him for this. The thing was massive, maybe 90 centimeters at the shoulder with a broad chest thorax. Mike corrected himself. He could see on one side there was some jagged metal sticking through the Hrovashi's shell, dripping lavender liquid. Do I pull this thing out, or leave it in? Working. Lily was silent for another 30 seconds. Removing the object and applying medical adhesive 3 to the wound should stabilize the individual and prevent further degradation. Are you sure? Mike looked at the thing in the bed, which was looking up at him with its mouth mandibles quavering. The experience would have been nightmarish except for the somehow hopeful look in the creature's eyes. 85%, was the reply. He advised that the alien vessel has enveloped both our craft and the freighter, and my engines are being overridden. I'm unable to operate. At least they aren't making this easy. Mike grabbed the piece and pulled as steadily as he could as the ship around him shook. The shrapnel came out with a schlip sound, like chili coming out of a can. Blood, at least he thought it was blood, started oozing out, but with a quick pass of the auto sutures, the wound was closed. He looked at the creature on the bed. Good luck. Turned to leave. Suddenly the door swung open and 3 large armored copies of the creature in the bed burst into the room. The lead Hrovashi looked at the shrapnel in Mike's hand and made a screeching sound, grazing his ear. Fuck! Mike dropped to his belly, wishing he hadn't left his sidearm on the table next to the bed, 4 feet above him. His right hand jostled something, and he saw his toolbox. He could hear the heavy footsteps as the creatures slowly came towards him, burbling in their language. Mike grabbed a heavy wrench, designed for turning valves and locks. He knew he was going to die. He saw the feet about to turn towards him and sprang up waving the wrench. All right, LETS fucking do this.